As the 25th of May wore on, aboard HMS King George V, Tovey had been reading intercepts of the Admiralty's signals to Rodney. As he read the signals, he felt uneasy and began to suspect that the Admiralty was taking a different view of the enemy's course. Subsequently, he sent an irritated signal inquiring why no one had thought to share their doubts and thoughts with him. Tovey wanted to know if the Admiralty believed that Bismarck was sailing south as opposed to sailing a northerly route to reach Norway or Germany. The Commander-in-Chief soon calmed down and decided that, on balance, the signal was nothing more than a precautionary move by the Admiralty to cover all possible avenues. Those aboard Rodney, however, were at the time reading a decoded signal which had been sent at midday to a number of shore establishments, including Plymouth and Portsmouth, which stated, "The Admiralty believes that Bismarck is heading for Brest." At 2:30 p.m, the Admiralty issued new instructions to Rodney. She was no longer to head for the Bay of Biscay and was instead instructed to steer a northeasterly course. Rodney had, however, already altered course away from Brest and was sailing towards Cape Finisterre to place herself across the likely track of Bismarck to both the French and Spanish ports. To Tovey, the Admiralty's signal to Rodney was baffling. Mindful of the signal instructing Rodney to sail northeast, but with evidence from signals issued by the Admiralty indicating that Bismarck was sailing in the general direction of France, Tovey requested that Lloyd review the bearing reports from the Admiralty. A few minutes later, Lloyd emerged from the plotting office with the sheepish admission that he had been wrong in his calculations. It now appeared to be the case that Bismarck was heading southwest and not northeast. Tovey began to develop a sickening feeling that he had been heading in the wrong direction and, in doing so, had been wasting precious fuel. Finally, at 4:21 p.m, he broke radio silence to the Admiralty and asked directly, "Do you consider that the enemy is making for France?" In the bridge receiving room, the radio operator stood by for the reply from the Admiralty. Minutes turned into hours, during which no signals were picked up, which were directed for the flagship. With nothing from the Admiralty, at 6:10 that evening, Tovey decided that he could wait no longer. Mindful of the fuel situation of his flagship, he decided, on the balance of all the information available, that the enemy was likely heading towards France, and ordered Captain Patterson to take up a new course, with instructions for all other ships to do the same. At 7:24 p.m, a signal was finally received from the Admiralty, confirming the belief that Bismarck was making for the western coast of France. Now that France seemed to be the likely destination, aboard Norfolk, which was sailing northwest towards Iceland in order to refuel, Wake Walker was plagued by indecision. He was torn between the instinct to continue the chase and the fear of running out of fuel. In the end, his instincts prevailed, and he ordered Captain Phillips to turn southeast at 26 knots. In 1939, the Government Code and Cipher School had been set up at Bletchley Park, a country house and estate in Milton Keynes. Known as Station X, Bletchley Park was responsible for breaking and deciphering enemy codes, the most famous success being the cracking of the Enigma code. Two of the individuals most associated with code breaking at Bletchley Park are Alan Turing and Harry Hinsley. Turing developed an electromechanical device called the bomb, which was used to help discover the daily setting of the Enigma machines on various German military networks. During the hunt for the Bismarck, the bomb did not succeed in providing the cryptanalysts at Bletchley Park with the German Enigma settings. Rather, they had to be individually worked out. In the end, the messages were being read days after they had been sent, meaning that they were too late to affect the outcome of the pursuit. They were, however, not altogether useless. On the 21st of May, a number of Enigma messages from April were deciphered. These messages disclosed that Bismarck had taken on prize crews and charts, information which had helped the Admiralty reach the conclusion that Bismarck was embarking on a sortie into the Atlantic to raid the trade routes. At Bletchley Park, Harry Hensley studied the external characteristics of intercepted German messages, a process referred to as traffic analysis. From studying call signs, frequencies, and times of interception, Hensley was able to deduce a wealth of information about the enemy. On the 25th of May, while the Home Fleet was frantically searching for Bismarck, Hensley, who was working in Hut 4, came across signals to Bismarck that had yet to be deciphered, but something stood out to him. As he looked at the messages, he noticed that until midday on the 24th of May, the Enigma messages sent to Bismarck had been sent from the German controlling transmitter at Wilhelmshaven, and that subsequent message was sent from a transmitter in France. This was not as important as it seemed, however, for, as she transited the Denmark Strait, Bismarck had passed from the sector controlled by Group North to that controlled by Group West, hence the change in transmitter location. Having made this discovery, Hensley immediately telephoned the Operational Intelligence Centre at the Admiralty and informed them that, in his opinion, Bismarck was heading for France. Hensley pointed out the evidence that the transmitter had switched from Wilhelmshaven to France, a clear sign that Bismarck was sailing towards France, but the information was ignored. It would not be until the evening of the 25th, following a heated telephone exchange between Hensley and the Operational Intelligence Centre, that his reasoning was finally accepted by the Admiralty. There had long been a strained relationship between Bletchley Park and the Operational Intelligence Centre, with the latter reluctant to heed the advice of the codebreakers, with some officers within the Operational Intelligence Centre resenting Bletchley Park's very existence. Hensley was vindicated in his heated discussion with the Operational Intelligence Centre minutes after his evidence was accepted by the Admiralty. This vindication came through an Enigma decrypt. The codebreakers did not normally read messages once they had worked out the Enigma settings for a particular day. On the 25th of May, Keith Beatty happened to pay a visit to the machine room of Hut 6, which was the Luftwaffe's Red Enigma code breaking unit. Within the machine room, secretaries using British Typex cipher machines set up so as to act like replica Enigma machines with the correct settings for the day in question, typed out the encrypted messages to produce plain language text. One of the typists turned to Beatty and, pointing to a piece of paper containing a signal that had just been decoded, said, "This one looks interesting." It was a signal from General Oberst Hans Januszek, the Chief of Staff of the Luftwaffe, who was in Athens overseeing the invasion of Crete. Januszek had sent a signal inquiring about the well-being of a relative who was serving aboard Bismarck as a midshipman and inquiring about the whereabouts of the ship. The reply to Januszek stated that Bismarck would soon arrive in Brest. This news was passed to the Admiralty, which sent a signal to Torvey confirming the belief that Bismarck was making for Brest. There was now no doubt where Bismarck was heading, but she still had to be found. Many thanks for watching. Please subscribe for more updates, like and share. You can also help to support the channel at Patreon. Details are in the description box below. If you enjoyed this content, why not also check out my Substack page for more unique historical insights and articles. A link to the page is in the description box below.